back, Billiken fans. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. This is the Midtown Madness Podcast. And really welcome back to another season. Yes, this is episode 2 of season 3, but we finally have Billiken Sports regular season. We've got games that have completed, and we have a lot to talk about, Pete.
We do. I love when this time of year comes, and like even the weather has been kind of like cooled down a little bit and gotten like just a little nip in the air at night, and it feels like fall, and that means all the good sports are starting up. And what a great time of year to be a Billiken.
Yes, I was on vacation this past week and out down in Lesterville, Missouri, and I mean, yeah, like that just slightly cooler late summer day, and then the 2 outfit day that is like a 50-degree evening, a 60-degree evening. You gotta switch over to the sweatpants and hoodie at some point in the evening. It's perfect bonfire weather. But I had a great week, and but I'm so excited to be back on the mic. I could not wait to get back to chat because somehow I was able to watch the entire women's soccer game on my phone in bum F nowhere, Missouri. But before we get into things, this episode, as we mentioned before, the whole season of the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men in a Garden Salsa and Pickles, but they just go by Two Men in a Garden, and we can't thank them enough. Joel Austin over there, Two Men in a Garden, has been a dream to get to know and work with. But the same company that delivers much needed halftime electrolytes to Fred Thatch is now fueling this podcast with not only delicious pickles, but salsas. And most recently, they've got a Harissa sauce out. I'm a huge chips and salsa guy. I keep at least a jar in my fridge at all times. They have every level of heat and flavor you could ask for. They are the real deal. Their products are delicious. And more importantly, when you buy Two Men in the Garden salsa, you're supporting local, much like you're supporting the St. Louis Billikens, especially this year with how many local guys we have on the roster. You can pick up their many products at any local grocery stores or online at twomeninthegarden.com. Make sure you're following them on social media at Two Men Salsa on Insta and Twitter. And when you buy their product and post it online and tag us, let them know that you're buying it because we're talking about it and because Fred Thatch is talking about it. Not only for us. Like seriously, go if Fred Thatch is why you bought it, tell them Fred Thatch is why you bought it. Just whatever we can, Two Men in the Garden, supporting the Billikens, supporting Fred Thatch, supporting the Midtown Madness Podcast. Pete, let's get right into it. There's no Tom Green in this, but we had ourselves a Euro trip.
We did. Although was he in Euro trip or just
God, I don't know. I just made that reference, and I may have just screwed up that reference.
Euro trip was the cheap knockoff.
Was road trip.
Road trip
yeah. had Seth Green, I think.
Regardless, it looked like a pretty great trip, yes. Nonetheless. Starting in Madrid, and looks like they spent some time on SLU's Madrid campus, which is like that's not something that every program can do. Is go over to Europe and be like, we're gonna hang out on our own campus for a little while. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool that they got to link up with Josh Fisher. I find it interesting because there are times where I don't feel like our program does well enough to keep a relationship or a line of communication open with the coaching staffs because we've had a bit of turnover. We haven't had too many coaches, but we have had a lot. And I wonder how many are in contact with Coach Ford, with Coach Forte, with Tate, all those guys. And clearly Josh Fisher now has got to hang out with Yuri and Travis.
Yeah, he went to practice on the 13th before they played their first game in Madrid. Fisher's wife is actually from Spain, and he stayed there after his pro career, which was mostly played in Spain. wrapped up, and he now runs the company Fisher Elite Training. There's a great photo of him from practice, a few actually, of what of him and Yuri, and then one with him, Yuri, and Ford. And I think somebody tweeted out something like that's like 1,500 career assists right there in this photo, with those 3-point guards. So that was pretty cool to see. And I know we've mentioned it before, but Fisher's just like the nicest guy in the world, and really, really happy to see him show up at practice, and that these guys who were too young to know about a guy like Josh Fisher when he played, still know how important that history is.
Yeah, you know who's not too young to remember Josh Fisher playing with the Billikens, and that's Dwayne Wade.
Oh, I was gonna say us, but yeah,
besides
Dwayne
us,
Wade,
yes.
Dwayne Wade, it may have scrubbed his memory of those games.
What's funny though is I think if there's one part of Yuri's game that potentially would be a place to improve on, besides obviously the turnover ratio, defense. He's a great defender, but he could always be a lot better, and he's that's the right person to talk to.
I think, yeah, it's kind of become a legend among the hardcore fans, like Fisher's ability and those games where he shut down Dwayne Wade against Marquette. Not games that we all necessarily won, but forced them to beat us in other ways. And the worst games, 3 or 4, arguably, of the worst games of Wade's college career with him guarding him. It's just really cool. But I think that aspect kind of forces the rest of his career to be overlooked, because he's one of the best defensive guards I think SLU has ever had. I think people kind of forget that. Not only did he lead us all time in assists for almost 20 years, but he really was a lockdown defender who I think would have been a lockdown defender no matter what program he played for. Just an incredible player.
Yeah, I was a big Josh Fisher fan. He always seemed to stick in my brain as far from when I was a kid. And of course, I love that he has that claim to fame of shutting down Dwayne Wade throughout college. Their first game on the docket was a 53-point win over Zentro Basket on the 14th. Pete, run us down the fast facts on this one, what we need to know.
I'm impressed with your quick math there, Zach, to get that scoring margin for us. But Jimerson led all scorers with 27 points, had his shot working, looked really good in highlights too, by the way. No matter where he catches it from, what side, he just gets that thing off so quickly. Parker had 16 points, and then Yuri Collins had 10 assists. They're playing these games with a 24-second shot clock, so it's at a fast pace, and SLU got a ton in transition. Ford said they didn't shoot it well, estimating that they made about 9 or 10 out of about 30 3-point attempts. And he thought they probably forced over 25 turnovers and also protected the ball really well. His quote was, "We took what they gave us." Basically, they played a pretty aggressive style that SLU was able to pick apart. So it was a really fast game. The veterans played early in this one, with the newer players playing later. Minutes were pretty evenly distributed. Perkins started, went to the bench, and came in one more time, and then they shut him down for the day. What are you thinking from the highlight package? It was a pretty nice little 2-minute highlight package from this game. But what'd you see in that, Zach?
I think the interesting one was Forrester and Momo. I think those two are the guys that we don't know much about, and what we can learn. Momo can pass it really well out of the post. Forrester had a couple of nice plays.
Well, Forrester, that was the next.
You know what I'm
him.
thinking about? Yeah. I'm also thinking about the photo in which he looks like Timo Cruz.
Yeah, that was the next one. But you're right about Momo in this one. He looked really good.
Yeah, sorry, I was adding to the notes. I forgot one more thing that we found, and I was not paying attention, trying to just wing it. Yeah, I think with Momo out of the post, Jimerson again, just showing off his athleticism, it's Momo. I think these are guys that are more Momo's age. He's a Euro kid, Senegal. I think we just call any foreign basketball player Euro now. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's where I really got into it. And a reminder that I was in Nowheresville, Missouri, and barely got any highlight or any. I could barely run any video on my phone,
Yeah.
so I was lucky to even get the what I got, and it probably stopped halfway through. So
Well, there's one other thing that kind of stuck out to me in this little highlight package. Parker really gets up for dunks. He doesn't just like he's not just kind of like smooth getting to the rim. He has a really quick burst. Um,
yes.
he had, I think, two dunks in this first highlight package where I like out loud was like, whoa, like I'm just watching it. I was, I just took a little procrastination break at work, pulled up my phone, and when I saw this tweet come through and was like, oh wow, he looks really good going to the rim. And he had a couple threes in there too, really quick shots. So I like that. And you're right about Jimerson too. He looks really fit. He's going up stronger on dunks. Like I saw that in that scrimmage as well. I think he had two dunks there where you were just like, whoa, okay, this is a kid on a mission this year.
Yeah. Somehow I think I think kind of that iron sharpens iron. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think what we saw last year in Jimerson just being pretty much molested all game long is really going to pay dividends this year in a way that's similar to you talk about back when we were without Willie and Kwame, Jordair Jet, Mike McCall, their development was was hurried quite a bit.
That's right. I think the other huge factor here is the reason so many defenses could get away with all the grabbing, the pulling, the being Jimerson's shadow for 40 minutes is that Perkins wasn't there, and he's
Yep.
back this year. That's going to make defenses be a little more honest because you've got a threat on the other wing who can shoot, who could stop and pop, get to the rim. Everybody knows how lethal he is as a threat, and then you've got Parker as well, who's looking great already, like a kind of guy who might have less of a curve than Perkins did his junior year in non-conference. So
Yeah, I think it's
I
just going to be his defense. I mean, that's the end.
that's
I
right.
think
That's
that's
right.
the end all be all on that one. But
Yeah, but I mean, when you're lining him up offensively, that's we just finally have those weapons on the other wing that are going to free up Jimerson a little bit more. It just makes us harder to defend overall.
you know what we didn't discuss, but from the highlight package, and there was a lot of talk about the jerseys we're wearing. We don't usually talk about style and fashion on this show, do we?
Right. No, that's not something we've ever covered before.
No, but I think we should cover it right here. What did you like about those jerseys? What didn't you like? And what what's your understanding is whether or not we'll see them ever again?
So I thought these were I tend to favor a cleaner, simpler look, and I like that about these.
Yep.
The trim was pretty thick. It was a pretty
It
wide
was
trim.
two C thick. It was
Yeah.
thick.
And these shorts, by the way, that they were wearing are the tightest, highest cut shorts that we've had since the early 90s. Like
They look
without a
like the
doubt.
kind of shorts I would wear to a bar on a Friday night. They look
Yeah,
like the swim trunks I was wearing all week.
yeah, I mean, sure. Go to Zach's Instagram
Yeah, sure,
for
yeah.
some thirst trap photos there. But I thought it was an interesting cut. It's just not
Yeah.
something we've seen.
Yeah,
Like I
it's
know
weird.
guys are kind of rolling the shorts. They're wearing them a
Yeah.
little more trim now, but that was a pretty big change for
Hmm.
me. So they were simple. They were a little just kind of, a little on the boring side.
I think
But
that
they were
trim
fine.
really, that thick trim really kind of did him in, I think, in
It
my
was too
mind.
much.
Yeah, I think so for me. I think they were cool looking. They looked nice. It was just like, okay, that's a lot of, like, you're either doing a blue jersey or a white jersey. I don't, but you're getting a little too close to the middle ground. It's like the old, like, the Timberwolves jerseys. They're like white and blue. You're like, okay, well, like, it's like you're getting around the NCAA. Like you can't have more than X amount of, um,
Right.
color.
Right. But I think to kind of touch on your other question from this, I don't think this is the final look for the season. I don't think these are what we're gonna. I think they just wanted something ready for Europe and maybe for scrimmages, practice, etc. But I don't think this is what we're going to see them in for the year. If we remember last season, I don't think the final jerseys were in until a day before that first exhibition game.
Yeah, who was that who said that on Billikens.com before we get accused of plagiarism? It was like, "Are you Bills fan?" or somebody. I don't remember.
I don't remember, but that did trigger that memory.
You know what? It might have been. Oh God, I could tell you his real name, but I don't want to. I don't want to do that. But it. Yeah, you know who you are. You said it. But we pulled that off Billikens.com. Sorry, my contact got wild, so I'm like zooming in on our notes. They head over to Italy, to Florence, and they play the Italy All-Stars. Do you have any idea what the Italy All-Stars are consisted of or where they're pulled from?
I really don't. I don't want to even pretend like I saw a couple things on Twitter and on forums and what I just don't. I didn't have a really good sense of who they were.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like a long-term roster or anything like that.
Like an athletes in action.
Yeah, maybe I think it's just like a group that plays kind of a season.
Yeah.
I don't know. But regardless, 92-61 was the win here. I think this is probably the best of the three teams they played, and it was pretty close for a while in the first half anyway.
Yeah. What do you think of Thatch coming in as the fifth starter instead of Pickett in this one?
Yeah, we didn't mention this, but Pickett was the fifth starter in the first game. The other four being Collins, Jimerson, Perkins, Okoro, who I think everybody's pretty confident are the four, fourth or fifth year players who we're going to see in the starting lineup. Thatch and Pickett are obviously also both experienced veterans, and I think people had some questions about who was number 5 and who was number 6 on this team. I think what this tells me is we could see that kind of switch all season long, and it might be matchup dependent.
Very hockey-esque.
Yeah, I mean there are teams in the A10 where Thatch is going to make more sense in that slot, and then there are other times where
we need big body Pickett. Yeah,
right. I think like we'll see him against like say Auburn or something like that. So I think that's kind of what that's telling me. I don't think this necessarily is a sign that Ford is like trying to decide on who's the guy. I think they're going to probably play pretty similar minutes to one another regardless.
This was a Perkins game. I mean, as much as 18 points is more than 16 points.
Well, I mean, that's a testament to his consistency. I mean, how many times last year is he just kind of in that 16 to 20 point range? He's just kind of that quiet assassin, and here I think the highlight package on this one had at least 5 of his jumpers, and man did it look smooth. It looked really, really good. We haven't seen as much of him going to the basket. I don't know if that's him being tentative or just kind of taking what was given to him, but his mid-range to outside shot looked really, really good in this one. And then you've got Jimerson chipping in another 16 here.
Yeah. By the way, just to clarify, Perkins, you're talking about his last season, not Perkins' last season.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I guess that would have been 2 seasons ago.
Yeah. He's just kind of like when he picks his spots. You find him at an elbow, boom, good, bye, see you later.
He's just such a quick, efficient scorer. As soon as he gets the ball, he's not going to just start dribbling.
The best way I can compare Perkins in the way he plays basketball is like watching like a really good Papa-Shot player. Like it's just very like there's no effort involved. It looks. He almost looks like he's not trying out there. It's just
so fluid, such a quick fluid. Yeah,
exactly. Okoro had a nice game in this one. 12 points, 8 rebounds. Forrester rejoined the team for this one, looking like Timo Cruz in the from Coach Carter in the pictures put out by the athletic department.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Dead ringer.
Good to see him in Spain. Spain, Madrid, Spain. Is that right? Okay, yeah, I got my geography down. Collins, 10 assists, no turnovers. Are we are we taking anything out of these two games in which he went for 20 and 20 assists to 1 turnover?
It's not going to happen against Auburn and Memphis and teams like that. It is a sign that I think he knows that ball protection has to be something that he's working on this year. I think too many times last year, I don't know if this is him focusing on trying to get the assist rather than just sort of running the offense, but he would get himself into deep, too many dribbles, have the ball a little too long, and either run out of options or make a pass a little too late or the wrong one. So I think there's probably going to be more of an emphasis from the coaching staff and from him this year to be better about kind of picking and choosing his spots with the ball.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, and I think I said this before, but like when Yuri was going through the saga, I think it was kind of where like we don't really need a great point guard. We need a guy who's not going to turn the ball over. We've got Perkins, we've got Jimerson, we've got Okoro down low. We've got so many options to score. We don't need a guy who needs to thread the needle on every possession to get a bucket.
Yeah, it's about not trying to do too much, I think is really the important thing, and having confidence in your scorers to make the play. As soon as you get rid of the ball.
One last game in Rome against I believe did I call them? Was this the team I called Team Blue of Italy?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Stella Azzurra translates to what?
Does it translate to Team Blue? No, that was
Blue Star.
Blue Star, and then I called them Azzurri something. I don't remember.
Whatever team is.
Yeah, whatever team is.
Equipo or what?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, that was my lame attempt at a joke. The every week I'm on vacation is pretty much like I have no concept of anything that I do or time at which I've done it. Jimerson and Parker go for 27 points each and 102-59 win. Do you take more out of this, or do you enjoy that 11 points out of Thames more?
Jimerson and Parker. I mean, let's face it, we're not gonna see as much of the freshmen this year. Maybe we are if Jimerson and Parker are going to score 27 points in the first 30 minutes of a game. That to me is like the dream scenario. If you have both of those guys clicking in a game, it's hard to picture us being outscored.
If you have Jimerson and Parker scoring double digits, I don't think you lose against anybody in the country. Because it would take because then you have Perkins.
Right. It would take like just brutally bad games out of other guys. It would take
terrible
foul trouble
defense
from a big. It would take turnover trouble from terrible defense, number one.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine if you get 54 points out of those two guys. It's lights out for whoever we're playing. So yes, we're going to be playing better teams than this. Oddly enough, this team did play something called California All-Stars or something. It's California. What were they? California Club, and that's a prep team with Bronny James and Penny Hardaway's son and some other guys who play for that Sierra Canyon team that they're all on now. So they played this team the day before, and SLU beat them by much more than that team did. Granted, it's a high school versus a pretty experienced college team, but
17 made 3-pointers in this one, though. I mean, what was the percentage on this? Did that come out?
I didn't see that. If it did, I couldn't find it on Twitter, and their write-ups have been pretty skimpy on these games. But it was also pretty cool to see Forrester and Hughes score 8 each.
Yes.
Because those are two guys who have been a little more. We just don't know as much about them yet. So
yeah. Well, they returned to St. Louis on Sunday, the 21st, and they flooded social media with content, Peter.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed by the kind of all hands on deck approach to this stuff. I mean, they have a pretty, if you go through the official men's basketball account on Twitter, Instagram, whatever social, even their website, it's a pretty nice travelogue of
Mhm.
the photos and activities and all the things they did, both inside and outside of basketball. It looks like the trip of a lifetime for these guys. It looked like a great team building exercise at the end. Coach Ford had some really important words about teamwork and memories and the stuff that really matters and the stuff that sticks with you in life. You'll remember wins and losses, but these kind of things really matter. And so I thought that was all pretty cool. But so looking at like kind of the whole approach to the social media they put out there, they put like GoPros in players' hands, and they give the players a lot of autonomy. I know you were on vacation, but from what you saw, what did you kind of think of this approach?
I like it. I think anytime you can find a way to, um, make up for shortcomings in whether it be financial, uh, staffing, I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So I'm all in on that. I think it's great. Obviously, I have my opinions on the amount of usage of certain, I guess phrases on Twitter, and I mean, I thought the cooking thing was cool. But I'm gonna lay it on the table, Pete. Which basketball player at St. Louis University would you most trust to cook you a meal?
Wow, out of the players,
Yes.
oof. It's definitely going to be a veteran. Um, I bet I'm going to go with somebody like I'll go with Forrester. He's a guy who, when we asked him a food question when we interviewed him, and that
Yes.
was what's the actual best cheesesteak in Philly, and he gave us confident answers immediately.
Nuanced, and confidence.
But also as a guy who is, just entering fatherhood here,
Yes.
he's a guy who has to grow up quickly, know what he's doing. He's going to have to be thinking about feeding someone other than himself. So I'm gonna say Forrester.
I
What
like
about
that.
you?
I mean, I gotta go with the guy who just looks like he runs on premium gasoline, and I think that's Fred Thatch.
Oh, that's a good one.
I
Yeah.
mean, he looks like he eats the right stuff. Not that I like to eat the right stuff, but I guess that could be. But I mean, Forrester did talk about eating Uncrustables and protein shakes. So I'm a little concerned on that side of things that he might be a little too basic for my liking.
That's good. And Thatch also has the very food conscious
Mm-hmm.
aspect of his career as well. With the pickles, the mustard, the turkey, and he's
Yeah.
probably always really, really conscientious of what he's eating. So I bet there's a little extra care in there too. So that's a good answer.
Well, the full non-conference schedule is out, Pete. There's very little we haven't already discussed on the show, but there were a couple final additions made, and we're gonna get into those. But first, Pete, I think we need to talk about pickles.
We need to talk about pickles, but I want to talk about a couple other things too. I saw that Two Men in a Garden. You mentioned it at the top of the show. The Harissa sauce is a new addition to their lineup, and something I am excited about because I like to cook Lebanese, Greek, Mediterranean kind of food, as much as my other family members will tolerate it here. Um, they like it for real. But I actually just ran out of the harissa sauce that I had in the fridge, and I've been waiting for them to put it up on the website, 2 minute a garden salsa dot or 2 minute a garden.com, and it's not up yet. I know they're waiting on the artwork to come in. It just so happened that I was in St. Louis briefly this weekend, and I left Perennial on Lockwood and Webster Groves. And as I'm crossing the street to go to my car, it's kind of over to the side of Straub's. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to pop in Straub's Market here in Webster Groves and see if they've got it. And sure enough, they did. And not only that, I found a whole shelf of 2 Men in a Garden salsas. And there were a couple I hadn't had yet. I still haven't had the hot mango. And there's also there's a new one, Cantina style, also not yet on the website. So I grabbed some of that, grabbed some of the hot mango.
This
And
is
so that,
not a Zach collab, by the way. The Cantina style is not a Zach collab because we've talked about this. I like to hit it with the food processor.
yeah, that's right. And whip it up into something smoother. So
Yes.
I'm excited to experiment. I just got home a few hours ago, so I haven't gotten into any of these 3 new jars yet. But I think in my ad read space next time, I think we're probably gonna have a little follow up on this one. So you check these new products out. I'm gonna go ahead and endorse them before I try them, just because I'm so confident. I really liked all their other stuff. twomeningarden.com.
As I mentioned before, we have 2 exhibitions that have been added to the schedule within the full schedule release, and those are what teams?
It's really just one exhibition, but these are both lower division games. So one will technically be a regular season game, the other will be an exhibition. So the first is UMSL. The exhibition is on October 24th, and that'll be at home. So easy commute for UMSL down the down Metrolink. And then we will have Paul Quinn College on November 23rd. They are an NAIA team. Similar to things we've done in the past season, we've played Rockhurst in the regular season. You know, that's a game that's kind of popped up every now and then over the last 10, 12 years. We've played Harris Stowe in the regular season before. I think that was actually last year. We played Harris Stowe and hung 127 on them. Paul Quinn College is a pretty unique game. It's an HBCU down in Dallas. And the head coach has a good relationship with our staff. He also coaches the 17U team for Drive Nation, which is an AAU program in the Nike EYBL system. And SLU recruits Dallas, and they recruit that program heavily. So this is a really important relationship to the staff. And if you're going to have a lower division game in the season, I think this is one that really makes sense for long-term roster building, relationships, recruiting. And Paul Quinn College has a pretty unique story to the school. And Zach, I think they probably have the most unique court design I've ever seen in my life. ESPN wrote about it last October. We shared it on Twitter one day. But if you Google Paul Quinn College ESPN, it's going to be one of the first hits. And like I said, Zach, it's one of the most interesting courts I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull this up actually, and I'm having no luck finding just a JPEG of just the court. It's really
Yeah.
not going well. And these are things that we want to actually bring into the show eventually, where we kind of do random screen share and whatnot. And we're going to get into it this
Yeah.
season, I think.
Give you the visual aid.
Yeah, exactly. So it is probably it's insane. It's awesome. It's I believe it says home of the Quinnite Nation. It says we over me. It's got the Dallas skyline, and it is a gorgeous little gym. It blows the hell out of LaSalle. It's about the same size, but it beats the hell out of it.
Yeah, it does, and it's not just the Dallas skyline. It's specifically a Dallas skyline taken from around the late teens or early 20s of about 100 years ago. And given that it's an HBCU, the school chose that era, to cite how it was the Jim Crow era, and Black people couldn't freely walk through downtown Dallas. So they wanted kind of this history lesson tied into their program. And both coaches on the program love it. They say players have really responded to it. The school community's really responded to it. It's basically black with kind of a white and silver, skyline, with big lettering with what Zach said, and then it's got kind of the purple, we over me on both ends of the floor. It's just a really unique, stark design. I tend to like a simple, clean court design. A lot of schools have experimented with either a gigantic logo at center court, or the two-toned wood all over the place, or different colors, grays and blues. And for whatever reason, visually, this one is just, it's striking. It's really stunning. It's cool. And it's a cool story too.
Yeah, Pete, were you able to see my screen there?
I was.
I think our listeners will be able to see it too. So hopefully that was our first foray into screen sharing in the middle of an episode. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's a beautiful court design. It kind of I'd love to see more of this stuff. Honestly, I mean, you look at the New York Liberty and their deal with Xbox. They have a very outlandish court design, but I think while outlandish and flashy, I think it is kind of it has its purpose.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also one of those things where if you're a it's so hard to make a name for yourself as a
Yes.
program. You're the NAIA school. When this name popped onto the schedule, everybody was like, "Who? Like, what is this? Who's Paul
Hmm.
Quinn? What?" Just confusing. That's the kind of thing that leaves an impression. It's the kind of thing that leaves an impression on recruits. It's the kind of thing that can kind of, attract curious fans. I'm all for schools figuring out what is the thing that makes them unique and selling that to the world, and I think that's they do a really good job of that here. And look, yeah, this is not we didn't have a last minute game against an SEC school or something like that.
Right.
This is also a game that it's not necessarily in a time slot I expected. I thought maybe that week and a half that we have between the non-conference and regular season start, I thought maybe we would sneak in a bye game during finals week, but we left that open. So there are a couple full weeks open during the season, and this is the one that's just right before Thanksgiving when we go up to Connecticut for the Mohegan Sun games. Um,
I'd almost like us to go down there and see this and play this game down there.
Actually, if we like say, as long as it didn't take away a home
Right.
date for season ticket holders, if we wanted to say do two exhibitions next year and make that one of them,
I would be in on it.
I 100% support that. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be
and I
cool.
mean, you've got how many kids from Jesuit in Dallas have moved back home?
Oh yeah, and not only that, how many kids from Dallas has SLU offered in the last couple years?
I mean
I mean,
this
you
is
could have
this is as recruiting strategic as you get.
yeah, play an exhibition game down there, and you could have a dozen kids. Now look, I know
It
maybe you
would
don't want them
be
all there at the same time, but
you
still,
could
you could
yeah
have your pick.
you could get. I mean, this would be a great publicity, like outside of Billiken, recruiting and alumni, like great, not great, but good A10 program plays exhibition at NAIA school.
Yeah,
Paul Quinn with insane court. I can see the freaking stupid YouTube videos now.
they would fill the gym.
Yes.
It would be a very high local interest kind of thing for sure, and hopefully, national interest within college basketball.
Yes, I 100% agree, and I hope if and Travis, if you're out there listening, please do that so I can, kind of rub it in everybody's faces that I came up with that idea. But yeah, Paul Quinn on the schedule as the exhibition. Um, Looking for another grad assistant per Twitter, Pete.
Yeah, I saw this. This was actually retweeted by Phil Forte because he's listed as the contact with his email address in there. But it looks like even though we've got two grad assistants, it looks like they're looking for a third. So I'm not quite sure, what that means. If they just kind of want a little bit bigger staff this year, if they had a little extra in the budget for it. But they are looking for another one, and they still haven't announced a director of basketball operations. I don't know if those two are kind of related or what.
Yeah, I think I don't remember where we heard it, but we heard the streets were talking the streets, and it sounds like the traveling secretary or the what do you call what's it called now, the
Ad-
assistant.
Administrative
Yes,
assistants.
thank you, administrative assistant is kind of operating as the Dobo as of right now.
It kind of seems like it. I mean,
Yeah,
she certainly has taken what seems to be a more visible role with the
right.
squad. I know she's kind of booking the travel and doing a lot of other things like that, but yeah, really seems to have taken on a bigger role with the team.
Um, Tramaine Isabell. This kind of came in late in the news cycle. Tramaine Isabell actually was at the ill-fated crossover pro-am in Seattle, and he has a picture on Twitter with LeBron, and he's wearing St. Louis basketball shirt, which I thought was really cool.
This is one of those things that it completely missed my radar.
Yeah.
But I knew I had heard that this event was happening up there, and there were people like lined up a mile down
Oh,
the street.
it was a debacle. It was like I'm trying to even. I mean, it it was it reminded me of like those games that like mid really mid like serious COVID where they would have like packed gyms and they'd be playing game like it was like that, but we're not worried about the pandemic and
Yeah.
this situation. Or like they oversold the gym and it was just absolutely just a complete disaster to control the crowd. It looked
Yeah.
like an and one mixtape event, and you just have people stand hanging from the rafters. Um,
But
but
yet Isabel still found a way to
yeah,
to to get to LeBron.
yes, Isabel hung out with LeBron, so that's really cool. Good, awesome for him that he got to meet LeBron.
Yeah, that's great.
Um,
And before we leave men's basketball, Sarah Wagner, office coordinator, is the title. I know
yes,
that's a title that kind of changes every once in a while depending on what they're doing. But I wanted to make sure we said her name before we split.
yes.
Sarah Wagner, office coordinator. I know they love her. She does a great job.
1909. We've been waiting on this. This has been for those who maybe had a little behind the scenes info. This has been kind of a dramatic series of a kind of it was very much like will they won't they.
That's right. 1909, for those who are not familiar, they call themselves just vintage basketball apparel. They've probably got close to 100 different schools by now, that they actually have apparel for. And I really encourage you to go to their website. It's the digits 19 and then the letters NINE 199.com to give you an idea of what they do. They normally come out with a relatively small collection for a school, anywhere from like 4 to 8 pieces. Some schools are more, like I'm looking at Georgetown right now, and it looks more like maybe 16 or so. And what they tend to include in the package, you'll have some throwback shorts. Like, think about like the most beloved era of your school's history, the Fab Five at Michigan, or maybe some of those '80s Georgetown teams, or um, maybe a Villanova team that won a national title. So they're going to have shorts. They're going to have things like hoodies,
This
hats,
gym
zips.
bag is fire.
Yeah, there. If you're on our YouTube stream right now, Zach has Dayton pulled up to give you an idea of what Dayton's got. Zach, why don't you kind of run us through what you're seeing for the Flyers here?
Yeah, so you have like a shooter shirt, a shooter shirt. Jesus, that sounds horrible. A shooting shirt, kind of a long sleeve quarter zip, and a lot of it is based off of if you ever like you look from the your era, Peter,
Hmm.
those warm up shirts that said Billikens on the back, and they had like they were blue up around the collar and up a little on the shoulder yoke and white down low. So they would come up with something like that. For the Flyers, there's a quarter zip. Then they have the Dayton Flyers 1983-84 away shorts.
Hmm.
And they're red with baby blue and white trim with a little navy at the very bottom. And they say UD on the side of the leg. They have the retro practice shorts, which are those are love hate, I think,
Hmm.
because they don't leave a lot to the imagination. And then they have a gym bag, which Pete describe. I'm gonna let you describe this gym bag because I think you're better. You're gonna be better for this one.
So it's one of those vintage gym bags that kind of has the cylinder shape, think
Mm-hmm.
like an old sleeping bag kind of shape. And it's got the two nylon bands, polyester nylon bands that come around to a fold over grip. And so those are a baby blue on a red or on a red bag color, and then in the middle of the two straps you've got the UD logo. Everything they're doing for Dayton here looks like it's kind of from one of them was listed as 83, 84. It kind of looks like it's from that 80s era, when they were using a lighter shade of red, two tones of blue plus white, which is honestly, I think it's a pretty nice look for them.
Yeah, I like it. If I was a Dayton fan, it might be something that I like. I'll send to Sully as a wedding present. Congratulations to him on getting engaged, by the way. But like Cincinnati, I've got it pulled up here. I mean, look at that quarter zip. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's the
Sold
oh
out.
god, these reversible mesh jerseys. I mean, those are cool. These are a lot. I mean, I remember you remember these '99 2000 shorts, obviously.
Think Kenyon Martin,
Yes.
the turn of the millennium UC teams, that they had the four, excuse me, sort of like blocks on the side of their shorts. It was like the black and white or the white on black. Just really cool. And this is a lot of stuff like living in Cincinnati. I see people who kind of still have some stuff from this era walking around. I live right by campus, and there are some really like they seem to do a great job of really nailing what
Hmm.
era fans love most.
Yes, that's what I was just gonna get into that. I mean, you look at like Cincinnati. You're talking the '90s, the late '90s,
Yeah.
2000s. For let's go Missouri Valley. So, I mean, you're looking. I wonder what they did for Loyola. That'll be interesting. It's kind of that really the 62-63 I think is where they were going, or
Yeah.
and then you've got that mesh jersey. But I think the question on the table then, Peter, is uh, what era? What era are they going to go for the Billikens?
So I feel like it's been a year since we first started hearing whispers that SLU was going to have some apparel deals coming out and that this might be one of them.
Yes.
And I've been in my mind, that kind of feels like spoonball era, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm picturing Larry Hughes. I'm picturing the kind of SLU had a little bit of red on their uniforms, but we had kind of the wide white trim on the sides and on the bottom of the shorts. Um, okay, so yeah, that one right there with where they're celebrating. Go down there a little bit, Zach. You see that one? That's kind of the era that I've got in mind. Where you've got the big St. Louis, kind of a traditional font. You've got Bills down the side of the shorts. You've got pretty wide white and blue trim on the bottom. It might not
Yeah.
be this specific year,
This is from when they
2000.
beat Cincinnati at
So
the.
I'm thinking maybe a couple years before that, even
Okay.
like Larry Hughes at SLU. But that's kind of what came to mind because that 90s run, from the basically the whole mid 90s for 5 or 6 years there is when SLU was really a national brand, when we were one of the top 10 um, in the country in terms of drawing
I
a
love
home
this.
crowd.
I think this is it right here. This has to be it.
So describe what you're pointing at there for those of
Yeah,
our
so
podcast.
it's the blue shorts, and it's Irwin Clegg. That's Cleggs, right?
Yeah, that's Clags in the corner
And
there.
then I want to say that's probably Banyak that I'm looking at, whose hip I'm looking at. But they have and Joel Hall is gonna poop himself in anger.
I think it's Highmark actually.
Yeah, it might be Highmark. But it's white, a large white trim surrounding red stripe
On the
on the
waistband.
waistband. Yep, and
Yeah.
then slew in a kind of a diagonal white with red trim on it. So
Yeah.
it's not going to be for everybody, and in their products really. They, as far as they go at 19.9, it's not really, again, it's not for everybody. And it's not for like, you're not going to wear this to a game, I don't think. These are the kind of things that you're going to wear like around the house, family barbecue. It's maybe you'd wear those mesh jerseys, but the shorts, I mean, you're not going to wear shorts to a game. They've got the Cincinnati Final Four here. I think I would be interested to see, them recreate that sweet 89-90 NIT Final Four shirt with that high top on it that says Bills.
Yeah.
That I think I wore on our first episode, actually, if you recall.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so and we're looking at Cincinnati again. They did one of the things, they nailed the 90s for Cincinnati. They did Cincinnati Basketball is Life,
Yeah.
if you recall that T-shirt. So it's possible that we'll see a St. Louis Basketball is Life or Billiken Basketball is Life.
Yeah, I'm really curious to what they do. I'm not expecting a huge collection. We looked at Dayton, it was 6 pieces.
Yeah.
Loyola was 4. I think we're going to be more in that neighborhood than what we saw for somebody like Cincinnati. And they've got here Kentucky, Arizona, Villanova.
Arizona would be Lute Olson. I was looking at Washington earlier because I was curious, when 6 Man came out, and how much of that stuff is similar to the what he wore in the movie.
Except it looks like most of Washington here, they've got late 90s and then kind of the mid-aughts, which actually that would be early Romar era.
Yes.
The 04-05 ones here. And then you've got late 90s. Washington had a lot of guys, in the there you go, actually, 97. So those are 97, 98.
Yes, so these would be the shorts. Yes, because they leaned into that dogs, DAWGS, not to be confused with the quarterback for the New York Jets, that's got that dog in them.
And that's right. And there's there's a lot of affection for these clearly because they're completely sold out.
They're sold out. They nail that. As I've said it before, and I'll say it a million times. Nostalgia is a hell of a drug, Peter.
It is. I mean, I when am I going to, like you said, you're not going to wear these mesh practice shorts to a game.
Your partner is going to be very upset when you buy these because you're going to wear them to bed every goddamn night. That's how that works. That's how that's going to work for all our listeners.
It's also funny too because it's like the inherent contradiction of basketball apparel. It's the least suited for the season in which basketball is played. Like I'm picturing a walk to your car on a frigid January night, in St. Louis. And under your jacket, you've just got a mesh reversible practice jersey on. It's just not the most pragmatic base layer.
And college guys, when you get these shorts, make sure you hide them when your lady friend is over because I promise you, basketball shorts get stolen real quick. I mean, they are the first thing to go. That and ratty t-shirts, they are the first thing to go, guys.
Spoken from experience.
Yes, all 3 or 4 of them in my life. Speaking of women, women's soccer. Pete, I feel like we should have kicked off the show with this one.
I think so, just because they have
this is massive.
So much in the last couple weeks since we talked. It hasn't even been 2 weeks since we spoke. And they've gone through 2 exhibition games, 2 regular season games, not to mention, Zach, they were picked to win the conference again this year.
Yes.
5 players on the preseason all-conference team: Halverson, Gaby, Miller, Piricelli, and Frederick. I always say her name wrong. But it almost feels a little light to me.
It does. Well, it feels like it's that when they do co-conference players. It feels like you're just like, all right, like we can't pick them again.
Right. I know.
Or like when you're in grade school, like it's always like that one kid that's always like gets something, and you're like, well, he can't win again.
That's absolutely right. It's also, it got me to thinking, since SLU has half of the first all-conference team here, I wonder if you put SLU's starting 11 up against an all-conference team from the rest of the conference, who wins that game?
We win that game.
I kind of think so too.
By far.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think that's where this program is at right now.
How many women's soccer conference all-conference teams would beat SLU's team? How many All-Star Conference teams would win?
So you're saying like look around the other
Well,
conferences
would the
and give us.
would the best players in the Missouri Valley beat SLU?
Mm. So the A10 is really it's
Obviously,
generally a
this is a
one
thought
bid league.
process. This is a thought process you could do with any team, any
I
really,
mean
really good
they
team.
they would from the power conferences, your Pac-12, ACC, SEC, Big Ten. Those definitely would. Big East probably. But yeah, some of those one bid conferences, I think it would genuinely be a very good question. Um, That's a fun thought experiment, though, and maybe for somebody who really knows the depth of the game better than we do. But I just think this program is in such a good place right now.
Oh, unreal. Unfriggin' real. Katie Shields is the real deal. I had a friend of mine, or a family friend, I guess I should say. She played soccer with a bunch of these ladies, and she said that she has met Katie on multiple, and she is the real deal. She
Yeah,
is absolutely the real deal. And this is, coming from a St. Louis soccer player, that is the target audience when it comes to Katie Shields.
hmm
So
absolutely.
I mean, from straight from the horse's mouth. On the 10th of August, the Billikens beat Lindenwood, and I'm gonna skip over the exhibitions a little bit. 9-0 win. Welcome to D1, Lindenwood University. Write up was short on details, but goals were from Frederick, Gaby, Larson, Gork, Lawler, and Kelly. Frederick had 2, Gaby had 2, Larson had 2. Great to have Larson and Gork back. Seeing their names tied to a few goals, it's a remembrance of how much offense we were missing this past year, because they were responsible for a lot of it in 2020. August 13th, they played Evansville in an exhibition for a win. Even less details on this one from the SLU side. 2 goals in each half is about all they gave us in the official write-up. Per the Evansville write-up, Abby Miller scored off a corner in the 30th minute. Gaby connected with Hannah Smith, who made it 2-0 late in the first half. Then Gaby scored off a giveaway early in the second half before making it 4-0 with a PK in the 88th minute. Pete, to the main event.
SLU started the regular season by hosting on the 18th, number 8 Arkansas, top 10 team in the country. SEC comes into the house, and Zach, SLU comes away with a 1-0 win.
Yes, absolutely. And I believe you said all of those great chances for the Billikens, and they score off that piece of crap opportunity.
Look, every goal is a good goal. It
Yes.
went in. It's important.
I hate when people say they didn't deserve to win. That's the worst
No,
thing in soccer. That is the
absolutely
worst
not.
attitude anybody ever has in soccer.
It really is. And soccer can be a cruel game because there are genuinely games where you outplay an opponent and
Yes.
you come away with a tie or a loss. It happens. This is one of those games that was, you look at the stats, it's you can't really differentiate. It was very even in every major stat. You watched the game and it felt like SLU was kind of the better team for most of it. The goal that they did connect on, Gaby did just enough to kind of put it in. It kind of, I've watched it from 2 different angles now, probably 4 different times. I don't 100% have a grip on what happened. The ball just kind of blooped into the net with heavy traffic in front. Gaby seemed to just kind of push it just enough. I think, was it off of her head or did
Yeah, it was a scramble. And
it
then it looked like one of our players tried to murder the goalie with her foot, in kicking it in after it was across the line, but yeah, it was a scramble, and I mean, it's a goal. It's a good goal. It's
it
in.
was
I didn't realize it went in on my phone.
no, and it came about 2 minutes after they had a really good opportunity. It was kind of like
Yes.
a 2-on-0 in front of the net. And I think it was Gaby actually who decided to go for it rather than pass it to a wide open Groark right in front of the net. And she put it just wide, like just a couple inches wide of the far post. But no matter, because they scored a few minutes
Right.
later. And Emily Piricelli looked great. She gets the shutout. Zach,
Solid.
you texted me something that I like, that I agree with. You said this wasn't an upset.
Not at all. But first, I want to get on ESPN Plus because why I can't cast it from my phone to a TV via a
Oh,
cord is ridiculous. It's just dumb. A lot of these apps do it. I think the one that does is Peacock and NBC. They're fine with it. Netflix is good with it, but for some reason, a lot of the live apps they don't allow it. I don't know what the deal is. There's so many other ways to do it. It doesn't even matter at this point. You can do it to a bar without any repercussions. But this wasn't an upset. This was absolutely not an upset. SLU was decidedly an aggressor in this game. They weren't sitting back and they weren't parking the bus and counterattacking. This was a skillful team that beat another skillful team.
It really was, and it really brought up the conversation that you and I have had a little bit, and that we've talked to some of our other SLU buddies, West Pine Bills, Carter Chapley. We were talking about. Think about that game that SLU went out on in the NCAA tournament last year. You just got to that round. You just got to that opponent where it was like, they're just better.
Yeah, it looked like we were playing like a pro team.
And we gave them all we could. It was just one of those things that was like, they're faster. They're more experienced. They're more skilled. They're really well coached. We just ran into a better side. The stats showed it. They won. They moved on. And you just thought, okay, SLU is just not quite at that top tier yet, and maybe you argue that Arkansas may have been overrated this season based on past accomplishments.
I think that'd
something
be,
like that.
And while you say that could be 100% true, but that doesn't make this loss any less impressive. I think 100% Arkansas was overrated at number 8. But it doesn't make this loss less.
No, and I still think they're a ranked team. You know, it's clearly a team that people have a lot of respect for the talent that's on their roster. I think coming into a season, that's really what it comes down to, is how does everybody else look at the talent on this roster? And a lot of it does get based on the accomplishments of last season. But SLU took a top 10 team at home and absolutely deserved a 1-0 win based on that. On the game flow, on the way they played, seems absolutely fair. Even if it wasn't their best shot at the net, regardless, I mean, they earned that win. They deserved it, and they did not look outclassed just by this SEC team at all.
No, and I want to shout out a post on Billikens.com, and I don't want to shout them out for that it was a good post, because I don't think it was a good post. But it made me think a little bit, and I kind of enjoy going down thought rabbit holes and YouTube rabbit holes and any Wikipedia, any rabbit hole really. Lord Elrond, he said, despite having to play against both Arkansas and the refs, SLU gets the victory. Now, I really, it's interesting because basketball, a lot of the refs are kind of flown in, right? Or they travel, they drive, kind of like the NHL. They travel and they go to the games. With soccer, I recognize a lot of these refs from indoor soccer, from, men's league soccer, from all around St. Louis. So I don't think you can say in this one that definitively, like, the ref, like, allowed more, right? Favored Arkansas. I don't think you could say that at all. However, then somebody came back, and I believe it was Skip, SLU fan Skip, who said, I thought the way he called the game allowed Arkansas to be very physical and use their hands a lot to get space, and many times to hold up SLU or even down on headers. However, I thought that was the same both ways, just that allowing that type of game favored Arkansas. So the point I'm trying to make is, how much of us bitching and moaning about officiating is more or less that we just happen to have an official that refs a certain way. And it just happens to be that game where, say you have a team that likes to come in and push people around, right? And you have a ref that's maybe has a little bit looser whistle, or a tighter whistle, or a looser whistle. Just like remember old FIFA when the refs used to have like, it used to say like what kind of ref this is. He's a little, So my thought is how much do coaches pay attention to that when hiring officials in the non-conference? Obviously, the conference assigns officials, but in the non-conference, our administrators like Chris May, like Janet Oberly, are coaches like Travis Ford, Phil Forte, when they go out and they find refs to ref non-conference games, are they looking for refs that match up our style of play or don't favor what style of play they're anticipating from the opponent? And when you get to conference play, do these coaches have like dossiers or like, write-ups? Like, they go there are websites where you can go look at an official's tendencies. So do they have that? And they, when they're game planning, obviously it's not a central focus, but it's a, hey, this is the kind of foul call. This gets called by this ref. This is, I know it's part of your game, but like, be aware. You know what I'm saying?
I in my experience, we never really knew until we got to the games who the refs were going to be. And I specifically remember the women's coach from my era, Jill Pizzotti. The first thing she would look at when she walked into the gym for a home game was who are the refs? Who are the refs tonight? Who are the refs? And she seemed to really know who all the refs were, knew them all personally, knew she worked the refs a lot. Other coaches, don't work the refs as much. I don't know how much of a game planning issue that is. I mean, I know Katie Shields had a really well drawn out game plan for this game because we saw it on the field. The fact that the ref maybe was the kind of person who's a little more permissive to a little more physicality, with hands and arms and whatnot. I would hate to think that if she knew ahead of time who the ref's going to be, what his tendencies are, or her tendencies are, that she would have been prepared for that. I do wonder, maybe Arkansas is a team that felt like they had a little size or strength on them or something like that. Maybe it's just the way they play in general. It's one of those things that doesn't necessarily translate as well if you're like watching it from your phone or maybe
Right.
a feed that isn't as great. So I didn't personally come away thinking, oh, the refs, hose them in this one or anything. The one thing I did notice, there was what appeared to be a handball in the box. She may have had her arm in tight enough. It clearly ricocheted off of a limb in the box and it went uncalled. So I don't know, maybe he kind of thought the arm was in enough to where it wasn't a huge factor.
Did this benefit SLU or Arkansas? I don't remember this happening.
It would have benefited Arkansas because it was off an Arkansas defender in the box. So it would have given SLU a PK.
Okay, so it would have benefited SLU. Okay.
And it was in the second half as well.
Yeah.
So that it kind of more or less would have put the game away if it had been called. I didn't go back and look at a replay of it. And the final result was what we needed anyway. So I'm not too worried about it, but it is kind of, I think you brought up a lot of good questions there.
Yeah. I don't want to, make this an indictment on a coach who doesn't do this.
Yeah.
Who decides that it's more important to just get their team ready. So I get that. But I think it's interesting. I definitely, I think, but to speak back, go to the talent gap. I think SLU's there, and I think West Pine Bills called it too in our Twitter thread or our tweet or our text thread.
Yeah, I mean, because I kind of put he said I think SLU is kind of in that top tier now, and I was kind of like, it feels to me like they're not there yet based on what we saw last season with Rutgers, and we have more or less mostly the same roster. A couple players who are healthy, obviously some new freshmen that I heard Coach Shields say were really fast. Like there's a lot of speed that she brought in this season. But to see them the way that they played against Arkansas, to me, it looked like a much better team than what was a really good team at the end of last season.
Yeah, I am so excited for the rest of this season now. This team is badass, and they're ready to make some noise.
Yeah, and they were back at it on Sunday against Drake.
They were, and they dominated this game, Pete.
3-0. The win is at Drake on a field that also serves as Drake's football field, which to me just makes me appreciate SLU not having a football program, especially one that they have to share a field with, because I hate watching soccer games on a football field. It's unpleasant, especially Like you said, Zach, the feed on this one was a little too bright, a little washed out. But the probably the most impressive piece of action in this game happened in the 6th minute, and it was an absolute rocket from 30 yards out.
Yeah, Emily Groark, my goodness, what an absolute pill this was. She has become a very important part to this team.
Yeah, she really has. I mean, what an offensive spark. And for her to this was one of those, there wasn't much in the lead up that had you kind of looking at the net yet. SLU didn't have wingers in the box. Like we didn't really have anything in the box. I think she just got to about the 30-yard mark and had a little space. Didn't really have any
The goalie was a bit terrible too.
forward passing options. Goalie was out a little too far for where she was in the field, and she saw a hole and took it, and man did she nail it.
Yeah, it was a great goal, and unfortunately, I had to do a little return to St. Louis work, a little housekeeping, so to speak, around here, and I missed the rest of it. Pete, can you kind of run down what happened the rest of the way?
Yeah, 3 different goal scorers today. Caroline Kelly scored a goal off an Anna Walsh assist in the 31st minute to give SLU a 2-0 lead going into halftime. Hannah Larson scored off a Lindsay Heckel assist in the 52nd minute. And this was all SLU today. They're on the road at Drake. You can't, it's sandwiched between ranked opponents at home. You can't overlook a team ever, especially when you're on the road. But SLU outshot them 18-2, including a 10-1 advantage in shots on goal, forcing 7 saves from the Drake keeper. Just an absolute masterclass, coming off a win against a top 10 team. And SLU is looking really good, really dangerous, heading into their next game, Zach.
Yeah, I'm excited. Notre Dame's coming to town. It's going to be a great game. It's Thursday night, Pete.
Thursday the 25th, 7 p.m. And Notre Dame is not just any opponent. They're number 16 heading into the season, and with a number 8 team losing to an unranked team, and Notre Dame hasn't lost yet. I think this is probably a team that's going to be a little bit higher ranked when the new rankings come out. I think SLU might be in there as well. And this is a really high level matchup, and I'm kind of hearing some people saying that Notre Dame might be an even tougher opponent than Arkansas. I think they're a pretty veteran team, and they're absolutely dangerous this year. So this is one where the one thing we didn't mention about that Arkansas game is that it was the second highest attended women's game in SLU women's soccer history, with over 3,000 fans, and it would be really, really cool to beat that on Thursday against Notre Dame. Notre Dame, I think for St. Louis fans, it's probably a slightly bigger name. It's a little more of a national brand.
Yes.
And I think there's going to be a high level interest game, and let's see if we can crush that attendance record.
Yes. Please get out there. It's super affordable. Super great. It's just great entertainment. This team is really, really good. Men's soccer. Pete, the Billikens are once again picked to win the A10 by the league's coaches.
Yeah, both soccer programs are really given a lot of respect here. And what really stood out to me here, 4 first-team all-conference players. Klein and Buendia coming back. They're the returning players who everybody knows what they can do. Klein leading the nation in assists last year. But now you've got Suarez and Warrington also first-team all-conference, and they've never played an A10 game. Suarez is the transfer from Central Arkansas, Warrington from SMU. That's a lot of respect for players coming into the conference who they haven't seen yet and in person. And I think it says a lot to what they think SLU did to kind of replace a lot of what SLU lost to the draft and to graduation last season.
Yeah, I think honestly, SLU probably should have had more players on the preseason all conference teams. I think, like you said, it's a lot to it's tough to put players you've never seen on the all conference teams, especially in the preseason. I think.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would understand if they were left off.
Yeah, for sure. But so SLU got the exhibition schedule,
Yeah.
started out at number 19 Missouri State on the 14th. This was a game that they almost treated more like a scrimmage, Zach. They didn't really keep official stats. I think they experimented with a lot of different lineups. I think Stu Durando tweeted out ahead of the game. This is one where coaches weren't just going to they just weren't sharing a ton of information. Like, yes, it was open to fans. Fans could go, but they just it was more of a tune up. I think is kind of how they saw this than a game that they really wanted to treat like like their final big test before the regular season. So almost an experimental exhibition, and they wound up playing to a scoreless draw. Not a whole lot of offense in this one.
No, it's interesting. You mentioned that it was played like a scrimmage, and I think I kind of pointed out, and you seem to be in agreement that it was pretty quick that the season, like the full team practices, only were like 2 weeks ago,
I know.
or even a week ago. Like,
Yeah.
that's weird to me. Like, I remember, I mean, obviously they have individuals, but I remember in high school, like you had to had X amount of practices before you could play, like for like your physical health wise, like that was like a whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
So
It's a really short turnaround time. So yeah, that one felt like it was still in the midst of those early practices, and that it was only the second exhibition that they kind of took a little more seriously.
um, the next game, yes, like you said, second exhibition was taken a little more seriously. They played versus Omaha at Herman Stadium. It's a 2-0 win. Carson Gibbs scores off an assist from Pete.
Yeah, who else but Johnny Klein?
Yes, Johnny Klein, the best assist man in college soccer right now. Another dime for Klein. Omaha had an own goal late in regulation. 2,725 fans were in attendance. That includes the welcome week game. Oriflamme, the rock paper scissors, whole spiel. That's the thing I wish was for a regular season game. I wish they did that more often.
Yeah, I think so. Um, Regular season opens Thursday the 25th at Louisville, and that's going to be played at 4 o'clock St. Louis time, so 5 o'clock local time against their ACC opponent. Zach is getting off mute right now, and we're going to go into volleyball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are going to go into volleyball, and with what else, Pete, but a diatribe. First of all, well, not a diatribe. Let me slow back down and kind of come back down to earth. A few days ago was 10 years from the death of Megan Boken, and of course, people sharing on social media. But I want to take a moment, and I don't know why they didn't. I don't know if the alumni are they're losing track of alumni. I don't know what's going on, but there was no Megan Boken alumni match this year, and I think it's complete bullshit. Regardless, you make it happen. I don't know what you have to do, but do something. Whether I missed it or not, I don't know. If I missed it, I apologize. But to not have that, because it's usually right now. It's usually this past week. It's usually right on the day that she was taken from us, and that's terrible. That's just that can't happen in my mind, Pete.
No, it's for this program that's the most important tradition.
Yes, her numbers in the rafters.
Yeah.
And I think you have to do better as an athletic department, as a volleyball program. You have to do better.
Yeah, definitely.
Pete, we're gonna get into this exhibition game, and yeah. 3-2 loss in exhibition play versus SIU-Carbondale on Wednesday the 17th. There was no stream, no full stats. Pete, run us down, and then I am going to run us down the stats on this one.
All right, I'm going to run down the stats, and I also want to set this up. So we've got this program, just to kind of put it in context. Kent Miller, the head coach, is entering his 12th season in charge of the program. SLU returns 5 starters from last year's 18 and 12 team, but the graduating starter was their best player, and that's Maya Taylor. She's been their star over the last few seasons, always the one who leads them in kills. So in this game, the exhibition game against SIUC, SLU only took the second and fourth sets and then lost the fifth 15-11. Delaney Rice had 18 kills, Carly Rogers 17 digs, and Cece Fitz had 7 blocks. So those are your leaders in this loss sack, which it sounds like you might have some thoughts on.
2021 women's volleyball schedule, SIU-Carbondale, 5-26 overall. 0-18 in Missouri Valley play for a 21-game losing streak, Peter. They finished this season on a 21-game losing streak. They did not win a single road game. They went 4-12 at home. They beat Alabama A&M, UT Martin, and Mississippi Valley State. Oh, sorry, and SIUE. SIUE 3-2. They 3-0'd Mississippi Valley State and Alabama A&M, 2 volleyball powerhouses. I mean, they're picked to finish 4th again this year. If you gave me odds, I would bet everything I have on them finishing 4th. Why? Well, because we finished 4th or 3rd. Well, we finished 3rd, right? The last
that's the difference.
10 years. And what's the difference, Pete?
Loyola Chicago joins the conference, so that automatically bumps them down a slot.
I mean, if we finish 4th this season, there should not be a 13th season. No, I'm sorry. I don't even care about. Okay, going back, I don't even care about the finishing 4th. There should not be a 13th season because there was no alumni match.
There you go. Is it possible that Carbondale completely overhauled, upgraded their roster, maybe had a banner recruiting class off of that 21-game losing streak?
Give me a second here. We're gonna go down this. Okay, so the roster. Let's see, where's the coaches here? Ed Allen, view full bio. Ed Allen. This is his 3rd season as SIU's head volleyball coach. The Salukis improved greatly in Allen's first. Okay, so he was 14-18 in 2019. They don't have 2020. So, I mean, he was the head coach at Alabama. 134 and 92. Tulsa, he was 133 and 37. I don't know what he's doing at SIU, but
I mean, maybe this is the big turnaround year.
Yeah, I would hope so. I hope that's the case. I really do. But I mean, it would be a damn miracle if he goes from 5-26 to above 500. I mean, this is just. I don't care. It's an exhibition. You can't lose to a team that you can't lose. You can't lose to a team that lost 21 straight matches before they showed up at your gym.
Yeah, that's right. I'm looking at their roster. It does seem a little freshman heavy, not knowing like who's who necessarily on SIUC's volleyball roster, because why would I? They do have a lot of younger players.
He did come in during COVID.
Maybe it is a talent upgrade. A lot of freshmen I'm seeing, a lot of juniors. Really no seniors here. So clearly he
could have some transfers.
Long-term building roster building. But regardless, 5-26 teams coming off a 21-game losing streak don't, just all of a sudden become conference champs overnight.
And the only people that yes, is Missouri Valley better than the A10 in volleyball? Yes. On the whole, yes. But you can't lose an exhibition game to a team that finished dead last in the Missouri Valley.
Yeah.
Or any conference. I don't care what conference. You can't lose. You can't. I don't care what the stakes are of the game. I don't care if it's the scrimmage against Missouri State that the soccer team played in. I don't care if it's a closed-door scrimmage for the men's basketball team against Grambling. Yes, that was a Cartier Gordon reference. Who's at Grambling now? Is Cartier at Grambling?
It's him. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Field hockey. At least they won.
4-1 win in an exhibition over Lindenwood out at Sportport on the 18th. It's their only exhibition match. They tend to play this one every year, and to kind of put this in context, SLU won this game 10-0 last season. So I don't know if that means Lindenwood is better.
Moving
kind of
up to D1.
Exactly, the overall athletic program moving up. Maybe SLU's down a little. Maybe it means nothing at all, and they just were a little more experimental in this one. It's just kind of a data point. Goals were scored by Abby Vitas and Brooke Mason in the first half. Josefina Perez and Lauren Pendergrass scored in the second. Regular season opens on the 26th against Central Michigan out in East Lansing, where they will play Michigan State 2 days later.
Yeah, we talked about this. This was an odd little thing where they played at the same time, kind of a non-MTE MTE.
Yeah, and these kind of happen in field hockey. These kind of regional cluster sort of things, like you say, they're not really official tournaments. But they do it every year. They actually did play Michigan State last season as well up in Kent, Ohio. They played in with Michigan State and Kent State up there. Michigan State won 4-0. Again, I don't know what it means for this season, but just to kind of give you a data point for last year. So they've got that, and they'll have another one of these up in Iowa City against Iowa and against BU. So yeah, it's just kind of how field hockey does things. I think it's probably to save on travel budgets.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they do again. I love the incremental improvement that they showed last season, and I think it's hey, whatever she can pull out of this program, and I'm talking about Zoe Atkins here. Whatever she can pull out of this program is all gravy.
Yeah, 3-14 overall last season. So you just want to kind of improve on that every year.
Yes. Pete, baseball, first of all.
Baseball's looking for a volunteer coach. We announced a few weeks ago, Antonio Garcia, who played and coached or head assistant at KU, was going to come in as a volunteer coach this season. But he pulled out of the job and is now taking a position out at Gonzaga. From what I could tell, because we tend to follow all new coaches on Twitter, it looks like he may have gotten engaged and she has a job out there or something like that. So regardless, he's going to be coaching for Gonzaga baseball instead. So that opens up a slot for SLU. So if you know anybody, reach out to SLU baseball.
Before we get serious, it do be like that sometimes.
It does.
Gotta follow your partner.
Yeah, that's right.
Pete, before we go, I know you have something you wanted to address, and I will give you the floor.
Yeah, that's right. I just want to say a few words here about Mary Jo Weiss, who's somebody who's really special to me. She passed away last week at the age of 74, and she was kind of a fixture at SLU games, especially in the early to mid aughts. Her sons, who are close friends of mine, Joe and Mike, were managers for the men's basketball team. 3 of her 4 kids went to SLU. So their family is an integral part of the SLU community and continues to be supportive of the program, the institution. And she was just an amazingly nice lady. I know she's met a lot of SLU folks and people within and outside of the program. I know we have some listeners who knew her or who at least met her over the years, and we just wanted to kind of let people know and to also extend our condolences to the Weiss and Tash families. So rest in peace, Mary Jo, and you will be missed.
Thank you, Pete. That wraps up the week that was in Billiken Athletics. Follow us on Twitter at Midtown Mad Pod, at Peter is a tweeter, at Zach Miller MMP, and on Instagram at Midtown Mad Pod. We always appreciate any and all suggestions you might have for the show. We are working on some new avenues. We're talking them out, thinking about it, as you noticed, if you watched on video, doing a little more little screen share, just trying new things, seeing what works, what doesn't. It's season 3. And we're trying to come up with maybe some shorter videos, some more timely content. But we're working on it. So if you have any suggestions for that kind of stuff, let us know. Please go to subscribe to the show on all platforms. If you haven't left a review, do that as well as drop us 5 stars. As always, Pete, go Bills.
Go Bills.